Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to the Best People We Know radio show. This is where you'll meet experts and celebrities who share their success secrets with you to help you be your most successful best too. Your host, Deb Scott, is a certified professional coach at Discover the Amazing You Coaching and author of the award-winning motivational book, The Sky is Green and the Grass is Blue, turning your upside-down world right side up. The Best People We Know radio show brings you powerful resources, effective ideas, and transformational tools you can use to educate, inspire, and motivate you to be your most purposeful, peaceful, happy best. So get ready to experience mind vitamins to feed your whole soul. Good change is about to happen. The Best People We Know radio show. Here's your host, Deb Scott.
Good morning to all the best people I know out there. Happy Friday. Wow, am I excited about this show. You know, it's good to host a show that you enjoy yourself because I really hope that all of you enjoy it as much as me. Today's topic is so rockin' awesome. How to turn bad breaks into breakthroughs, okay? I don't know anybody out there that doesn't have some junk they want to dump, and this is going to be a great show because Dr. Michaela Haas is with us, and she's going to give us some specifics on what we can do to really find those jewels in the junk. And she's an expert in this. It's going to be a great show. You can find out more about her, and I encourage that you do it. Michaela Haas, and it's michaela-hass.com. And we have a great lineup. We've got tons of great shows. Don't miss out. Follow us on your Blog Talk Radio page by clicking that little blue button on the left, and then you'll get updates. And go to my website, debscott.com. That's pretty easy, debscott.com. And then just sign up for the monthly Mind Vitamin News on the right-hand side or on the top bar with this little flashing gizmo that hopefully will tell you where to go easily. All right, well, Dr. Haas. Wow, she's the owner of Haas Live. Obviously, that would make sense. That's her name, Haas. But she is an international coaching company for media, mindfulness, communications training. And in America, her articles have appeared, and you probably read them in the Washington Post, the Huffington Post, CBS, Psychology Today, Psych Central, you name it, she's been there. She's also taught at the University of California, Santa Barbara, the University of the West, and other centers in America and Europe. Well, she's authored this new best-selling book. What a great title, Bouncing Forward. See, I feel better just reading this, Bouncing Forward, which contains deeply personal interviews and accessible tools for discovering the uplifting new science of post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth, that's another thing she's going to tell us about. What is that? That's an interesting new word, isn't it? A cutting-edge look at how we find healing and new resilience. Isn't that a key word? Resilience after a setback with post-traumatic growth. In Bouncing Forward, Dr. Haas weaves engaging stories of modern survival while uplifting and often taking away surprising takeaways. And the readers are given tools for not only surviving life's inevitable tough times, we all get them, people, but consciously thriving because of them. And that's by Gay Hendricks, who we know is the Big Leap in Conscious, loving expert. Oh, my goodness, I'm so excited you're sharing a shine with us. Don't we need this? Thank you, Dr. Michaela Haas, for calling so early in Los Angeles.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, what a great title, Bouncing Forward. How'd you come up with that one? Because that's my first question.
I didn't. Maya Angelou came up with it, and she gave me an interview for Bouncing Forward, and she speaks about her emergence from childhood trauma and experiencing violence and abuse as bouncing forward, going beyond what the naysayers said. And I loved that so much that I thought there couldn't be a title more fitting, because usually we talk about bouncing back, and that's what resilience actually means. But if you think about it, we can never really go back. And if we've experienced a loss or a setback or a crisis, we're transformed and profoundly changed. And we have to keep moving forward, and life keeps pushing us forward. So this image of bouncing forward, I think, captures this idea of post-traumatic growth really, really well, and I love it.
Yeah, I love it too because I think that anybody that says, "Oh, they don't have a setback, they don't have an issue, they don't have a problem." I mean, they're just lying because that's part of life, isn't it? We all get it, but not everybody is able to respond to it and take something good out of it, become a better person. And your work really talks about that. I have to also ask you, how do you define the personal growth, the personal breakthroughs? How do you describe that? What is that new tendency to? What's that new word? What's the buzzword I'm looking for in there that you had?
Post-traumatic growth. And
yes.
Again, I didn't come up with it, but the reason I wrote the book is because everybody has heard about post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, but hardly anybody has heard about post-traumatic growth. And it seems paradoxical to even put these words in one expression, trauma and growth. But the fact is that almost up to 90% of people who've experienced a setback or a severe crisis actually come to experience eventually a renewed personal strength, deeper relationships with others, new perspectives on life, a deeper appreciation for life, and a more intensive spirituality. These are the 5 main areas of post-traumatic growth. And the psychologists who came up with that term, they didn't invent a fancy theory and then try to prove it. It was the other way around. They've been working with survivors for decades, and they were surprised that again and again people told them, I'm not glad that this happened to me, but I've learned something from it. I've become a different person, a better leader, a better friend because of it. And all the people I've interviewed for Bouncing Forward, from celebrities like Maya Angelou and Rick Allen to people from all walks of life, soldiers, surfers, mother who lost her daughter, all of them eventually, and this is not something that happens right away, and it usually doesn't happen by itself, but eventually they were able to attest to a new perspective in life and maybe even finding a new purpose in life.
Well, I tell you what, that certainly sounds like a better way to live because you thread so many different walks of life. So it doesn't matter whether it's a veteran, a cancer patient, could be a famous person, like you said. It could be the everyday person. People that call into this show. Some people are dealing with a lot of stuff, whether it be sexual abuse. We see stuff on the news, and I know you talk about that as well, the influence on the media, people with divorces and jobs and money. But all of them are threaded together with a possibility to bring all these things together, the genetic factors, the social skills, the purpose, and all that. So acceptance, openness, flexibility, optimism, patience, mindfulness, empathy, compassion, resourcefulness, determination, courage, and forgiveness. You write about these being very important parts in transforming these bad things into good things. So give us some examples in how do we do this? How do we apply this? Because who wouldn't want this, Dr. Michaela? This is something that I would like to be able to just transform everything. And, I'm interested in how you can help us as listeners begin to do that before you even leave us today. And, of course, we're going to get your book, Bouncing Forward, which is a bestseller on Amazon. So I'm just telling everybody, Bouncing Forward, you can just Google it at Amazon.
Well, yes, that's why I wrote it, to help people, because pretty much everybody goes through a crisis one or more times in our life, right? And one of the things I learned is, when we say trauma, so many people think that applies to the war in Iraq or severe sexual abuse or a life-threatening illness. But really, what I've learned is that trauma can also include the everyday traumas. Like you say, a divorce can be traumatic for someone. For some people, a divorce is a relief. For others, it's a traumatic experience. I've spoken to a man who has cancer, and he takes that as a challenge. He says he can deal with it. But his divorce was the traumatic event of his life. So really anything can pull the rug out from under us. And I think it's important to prepare for life's challenges as much as we can. And for me, resilience is like a muscle that we can train in. And we strengthen it with training, and we weaken it when we don't prepare for life's challenges. But post-traumatic growth is a little different from resilience, because resilience is one of the outcomes of post-traumatic growth, but also one of the things that I find encouraging is that sometimes the people who are the least resilient have the most room to grow. And it all depends on how we respond to that thing that happens to us and whether we take it as a challenge that we're willing to work on. Because unfortunately, and again I come back to Maya Angelou, she says, nothing will work unless we do. And my main purpose with writing Bouncing Forward is to tell people not to give up and to keep working at integrating this crisis or this loss or whatever happened to us into our lives, and to keep working at processing it. And there's so much we can do to take it as a learning experience, taking responsibility for our response to what happened. And one of the most important things is to scout for allies, because I've learned so clearly that none of us can do it alone. We're only as resilient as our support system is. So we need to find our tribe. We need to find the people who are willing to support us in our darkest hours. And we need to be these people as well. We need to be there for others. And that's one of the things that's emerged so clearly from talking to hundreds of people, is that a lot of them found their new purpose in life in helping others, in sharing what they've learned from their tough times and passing that on to others who've been in similar situations.
Yeah, wow, I love it all, because isn't there somebody out there that we can connect with that has had that experience? Isn't there somebody out there that can encourage us? And like you say, you got to have a good tribe. You are who you associate with, and that's really important. But you also talk about, don't put the pressure on yourself that, you have to do it right away. I mean, I think that there can, as you say, there can be almost a stress in, okay, well, I got to be happy. I got to make something turn around. And that becomes the stress. It's like when you want to sleep at night, it's like, okay, I got to get to sleep before the alarm goes off. That's when you can't sleep, right? It's like we almost sabotage ourselves with that. I do not know why. So, you talk about that with the differences between like American culture and European culture and all that, but
well, my sister-in-law Tammy, who lost her only daughter, she calls it our hurry up and get over it society. She got 3 days of bereavement leave after her daughter died, and then she was supposed to get back to work and get back to life. And I think we see that all around us. When a tragedy happens, we can't get back to our normal life for weeks or months or maybe even years. And I think that whole term of getting over it just really never applies, because we never get over losing the ones we've lost or dealing with that illness that we've been diagnosed with. We're processing it. We're trying to learn to live with it, but we never get over it. And I think in our society we do two things that aren't helpful. One is the get over it approach that doesn't work. And the other one is, though, that we paint too dark a picture, because almost every survivor I spoke with thought that they were doomed, that they would never be able to lead a happy life again. And that's not true either, because with time and with the right support and with the right methods, everybody can learn to live with the trauma that happened to them, or to live with that change or setback, and to grow from it. And though not everybody does grow from it, I believe that everybody can work towards that. And Maya Angelou is a supreme example of that, because I think her whole life story is a story of post-traumatic growth and taking one setback after another and coming back from that and coming into a response of love and forgiveness rather than hatred, which is so important right now as, we're reeling from the terror attacks in Paris. And you see some people responding with hatred and others responding with love and support and opening their doors to strangers.
Exactly. And I love how you bring it into, what's happening right now in the pulse of today, because, we are all I think, just amazed and horrified and dealing with a lot of emotions when we look at the news and see what's going on, and everybody is responding differently. One of the things that I think that we've accomplished already in having you here on this radio show is, just the fact that you've written this book, just the fact that you've, met with people that have overcome these traumas and found these good things. All of this gives us the ability to believe. So even though it hasn't happened yet, if we can hold on and make that decision to know that it is possible, wow, that's the first step, because before we can have a new action, we have to have that awareness and acceptance that it's possible and believe that it can happen. And you've really, tuned us into a different set of expectations that leads us into a better direction. So there's a couple things that you talk about in meditation, people that are, prayerful, how that helps reduce the pain. This purpose in life, I find most people call in are always looking like, I want the magic bullet for my purpose in life. And you talk about writing these things down as well. So help us integrate these things so that we can, bounce forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that you bring up meditation, because I started my research with the Army because I figured there was no organization that has a keener interest in figuring out how to prepare for trauma and how we can help people heal from trauma. And so I went to the Army's Resilience Boot Camp. And one of the things that surprised me so much was that the first thing the soldiers do in the morning, so you picture 180 sergeants in their camo fatigue, and the first thing they do in the morning is they meditate. So they take 5 minutes, they close their eyes, and they focus on their breath, very basic mindfulness meditation. And the Army does that because they know that by now there are thousands of studies that show that meditation is one of the best ways and most effective ways we can help ourselves to stay calm in stressful situations. And it also helps us heal from trauma. There are actually changes in the brain that are affected by meditation. And it really has an influence on post-traumatic stress. And so even the Army employs that now as a tool, and I've met so many soldiers who started taking it up on a regular basis and who find it so helpful because meditation is actually more effective for pain than painkillers, than morphine. So
that is
it
unbelievable.
Isn't it? And it works both for emotional pain and for physical pain. You probably know that in America, we're the world champions in taking painkillers. We take 80% of the world's painkillers. So we're way beyond sensible pain management. We are taking painkillers to numb ourselves, not to feel things. And I think meditation is one of the ways I recommend to stay present with what is. Can I breathe in this moment and stay present with what I'm feeling right now, with my pain, whether it's emotional pain or mental pain or physical pain?
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive. Everybody wants to avoid the pain and get over it and take a pill and whatever. And what your study is showing is, no, you want to lean into it. You want to be present. You want to be able to enjoy and sit with yourself and enjoy your own company in this moment. And that increase in gratitude and appreciation is going to create those feel-good endorphins that are going to be better than the morphine. And then it begins to create a cascade of positive, healthy decisions, and they're also connected. And there's so many studies with prayer, too, aren't there, that people, recover faster in hospitals after surgery. I mean, it's that connectedness to ourselves and to others in that positive way you mentioned earlier that creates more good than bad. So should we just be turning off the TV? Because I got to tell you, I'm bad with the news, and I know I do better when I turn it off. Your study found out a lot about that as well, didn't it?
It did. You see, what happens when we watch the news and we see these same images over and over and over, it's a prime example of what psychologists call learned helplessness. We're in front of the screen, we get bombarded with images of horror, and there's nothing we can do about it. And so I do know people who, as a journalist, I think it's important to stay abreast of the news and to keep following what's going on, but to keep seeing these images again and again is not helpful, and it instigates in us, or it installs in us, a feeling of helplessness and of being bombarded by these negative images. So the average young person in America spends 7 hours a day in front of a screen, and that's usually not the Science Channel or the Nature Channel. It's often video games, or it's programs where we see so much more violence than we would ever experience in real life. And that's not helpful. So one of the women I feature in the book, Rhonda Cornum, who is a soldier who actually started the Army's resilience program, she calls it, she says she pays attention to what she feeds her mind, just as she pays attention to what she feeds her body. So she says you can go on a healthy diet and eat, broccoli and beans, or you can go and stuff yourself with fast food. And she says it's the same for her with media intake. So she wants to follow the news, but she does not spend hours and hours in front of the TV letting herself be bombarded by these negative images, which accomplishes nothing.
Yeah, tell me about it. I just think there are so many practical tips that you talk about in so many real life stories, and these are all things that we don't have to wait till tomorrow. I mean, these are things that we can do. We're learning all these things. We're not even the same person we were before we started talking to you on the show, Dr. Michaela. You've transformed our mind already just with all of these new ideas that you've planted, and hopefully these seeds are going to help us grow a better life, and I know that they are for thousands, or you wouldn't be a bestseller doing the work you're doing. But how does life purpose, that seems to be a really big theme as well. We have to turn off the noise on the TV, and then when we're in that silence and doing these things you talk about and writing things down and doing that meditating and prayer, we're able to see what our purpose is. And when we have that purpose, it gives us a sense of peace and happiness to find the goodness in those experiences that we may not so like at the onset. But as you say, if we can patiently trust the process that you've outlined, we can believe that it will happen, it will come, and we will be grateful, that we've become better people. So talk about life purpose in all of this.
I was surprised to find out that 40% of us do not know our purpose in life. 40%. That's huge. I mean, that's almost half of us. So what are we doing here?
What are we, The Walking Dead? Are we The Walking Dead? Okay,
I think
nobody
people
knows
are trying
what they're doing.
to figure it out. I see people searching, but what are we doing here if we don't know what we're here for? So One of the things that is a big takeaway from my research for Bouncing Forward is that so many people found their purpose after they've worked through the crisis. So, for instance, one of the people I feature in Bouncing Forward is Jesse Biller. He was a surfer, one of the top 100 surfers in the world at age 17, when he had a surfing accident that left him paralyzed. And so what he did was, after that accident, he knew immediately he had to get back into the water. He didn't want to go on living if he couldn't surf. That was his life elixir, was the water, the ocean, being out there. And so he convinced his surfer friends to take him back into the ocean. Now, he's paralyzed. He can move his arms a little bit, but if he fell into the ocean, he would just drift like a piece of wood. And so he's trained himself to balance on the board enough so that he can surf. But more importantly, he started a nonprofit, Life Rolls On, where he takes other handicapped children and adults into the ocean to surf. And he also does skating events. And that's his purpose of life now. So before this accident, and of course he wished that didn't happen to him, but before the accident, his life was about catching the next wave. It was about competing, that's what he was all about. And people who know Jesse before and after, they say this guy has changed so much because now his life is all about helping others, and that's what brings him joy now. And there are so many people who found that joy. Like Rhonda Cornum, I just mentioned, she started the Army's Resilience Program because she was captured in Iraq. And she spent a week in a bunker in Iraq as a prisoner of war and was assaulted there, and it was a very difficult situation, of course. And when she came out of that, she wondered, well, how can I help other soldiers go through such experiences better? What can I do to help them? Or Cindy Lampis in the book, one of the co-founders of MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And the only purpose she could find after the senseless accident that took her daughter away from her was to help prevent other drunk driving accidents. And she's probably saved hundreds of thousands of lives with her activism. So they didn't choose that, but they took what happened to them and made it into their purpose of life, and now have helped hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of other people.
You know, the irony that a greater good could come out of a bad, and it really is, it's mystifying to me how some people just transform those things. And to me, that's a commitment that I want to make to myself, to discover myself, who am I? And whoever's listening, and we'll take a call from 212 in about 2 seconds, you know, that idea that what we want and what we need may be two different things, and the unexpected package that those answers come to us in.
And happiness and purpose is not the same. So we want to be happy, but sometimes the things we reach for in our pursuit of happiness are actually not the things that are really good for us. And so purpose is, you know, a tragic event reduces our happiness, at least for a while or even for a long while, but we can use it to find a new purpose in life. And I didn't write this book because I have all the answers, but I actually wrote it out of despair. I started the research because I got ill myself when I was in my late 20s, and pretty much from one day to another, I was bedridden, and I found myself bedridden for about 8 months, and I couldn't work for a year and a half. And I found out that I was not resilient, and I was not coping well with it. And that's really what sparked my research, because I saw other people who've been through things much worse than what I've gone through, and they were able to find a way to emerge from that stronger and wiser and more compassionate rather than bitter and desperate, which is what I was feeling. So that's what I wanted to know, how to do that, and that's why I embarked on this journey.
And, you know, the journeys, we always teach others best what we want to learn ourselves. And, you know, I think that if somebody wants to ask themselves, well, what do you want to change in your own life? What do you want to learn? And you wanted to discover, you know, how can I take my own personal pain and transform it? I mean, talk about some honest authenticity, you know, soul searching that you had to do, which is why I think because of your personal experience, I think that's why the book has done so well, because people can see that integrity within your writing. What were you know, it's hard to pick one thing. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but you know, when you finished the book, Bouncing Forward, what surprised you the most that you learned that you were grateful for, that you could apply in your life? What was it that just you didn't expect at all to discover?
I think when I started out, I had some, you know, quotes in my mind that I had heard from wise people, like the Dalai Lama, for instance. He says, your enemy is your best teacher. And I always heard these quotes, and I kind of found them inspiring, but I also was like, yeah, well, you know, I still wish that life would be just easier and that I didn't have to deal with these difficulties. And to actually find and even, you know, pull out these studies that show that we're too quick to condemn adversity as something that's just bad. And there are even studies that show that sometimes people who've been through adversity, they are more compassionate. They pay more attention. There is actually a study that shows that sadness leads to more accuracy. We're able to evaluate other people more accurately when we're sad. So the thing that surprised me was that these inspiring quotes that I had in mind when I started out, that they're actually backed up by science, and that there are actually methods behind it that we can use to take that adversity, not to run away from it, but rather that the healing lies in going towards it, in facing it, in taking up the challenge. And that's another of my favorite Maya Angelou quotes that she said to me. She said, take up the challenge, take up the challenge. And in a way, we have no choice, because if I had been staying in bed when I had this autoimmune disorder, and I would have died. I had to keep going, and I had to keep searching. And what I came away with from that was that at the time there wasn't a whole lot I could do about my physical illness. So I had to turn and look at, well, what can I do to strengthen the immune system of my soul? What can I do to get stronger emotionally and mentally?
It really is amazing to think that, the things we want could be crystallized in suffering. Love, compassion, empathy, self-love, awareness. It's like, okay, next time something happens that really is tragic, I'm going to say, thank you, God, for this wonderful learning experience and transformation I'm about to receive. But, seriously, there really is a gift in it, in everything. And your message is just so inspiring. And it's not Pollyanna-ish. It's, it cuts to the core of who we are as human beings. And last I checked, nobody's staying. So we have a choice, as you said, whether it's an autoimmune. We all have an autoimmune disease. I think a lot of us can just stay in bed and just, try to hide, or we can come out and say, okay, well, what's the choice? And to realize that, you know what, nobody else, we're all in this idea, the illusion, and I think, again, this is reality TV and everything. It makes you think, oh, nobody else has this problem or this, get rid of that stinking thinking that, this doesn't happen to anybody else. It does, and that's why you talk about getting around the right people and connecting and so many basic things. But, the book has so many ideas, and you're traveling the world with it. So how can people connect with you? How can people work with you? I know that you work with major businesses and corporations, but you also work with individual souls, just like me and our listeners. So tell us how to connect with you on that.
Well, you've mentioned my website, michaela-hass.com, and that's really the best way to connect with me. My email is on there, info@michaela-hass.com. I do give workshops. We will turn the book Bouncing Forward into a Bouncing Forward workshop where we go deeper with the exercises and methods presented in the book. But as you say, I do individual coaching, and that goes from anything to on-the-phone coaching, though what I love most is the personal work with people, and I do that both in a corporate context and in a personal context, so really anybody can come to me. So I'm not a therapist. I'm a coach and a reporter and somebody who's been on the journey of practicing meditation for more than 20 years. So I bring that into the coaching work, what I've learned from my work and from my own journey.
Yeah, well, your journey is priceless because, last I checked, if I wanted to go into a plane with somebody that read a lot of books about flying or had spent a lot of hours flying, I would pick the guy that spent the hours flying. You know what I mean? You've been flying. You're the real deal, and I think that's what we need more of. But I also want to let people know that on your website when they go to Michaela Haas is that, there's a little tab on the top that has blog, and one of the things that you mentioned as we were in our time together here, you were talking about why striving for happiness can make us unhappy. Well, guess what, people? There's a great article that she has posted from Psych Central talking about that. So you give us that opportunity to really dig deeper in all of these things. I feel like my life is an archaeological dig. So I'd rather do the digging with you because you make it fun and enjoyable and positive, and we need more people like you in the world to help us have that hope and to teach us. It's like anything else in life. Nobody learns any language on their own. We all need help. There's no shame in getting help. And I really don't want to, at this age, I really don't want to waste any time reinventing wheels. So I would rather learn from somebody like you who I can trust. And I know that's why you're so successful and doing so great. So I thank you for that. So this is going to be fabulous, having the book into more workshops. That's like a perfect evolution. That's going to be great. We'll definitely be promoting that for you when that happens. But the book is Bouncing Forward, Transforming Bad Breaks into Breakthroughs with Dr. Michaela Haas. I just love what you're doing, and you've helped me, and I know you've helped a lot of our listeners, and I always ask them to share the show with a friend because we do help each other. And one of the easiest ways, and it doesn't take any time besides, you get the book, obviously, but, share this show with a friend on Twitter, Facebook, social media, and that's how we help each other and keep the show going and growing, because without people, you all out there helping, there's no way I can bring you great guests like Michaela Haas. So is there a favorite quote that you wanted to share before I put the outro music on, Dr. Michaela?
The book starts with a quote by Martin Luther King, who said, "Only in darkness can you see the stars." And that would be my favorite quote.
Okay. Well, we're all. I'm feeling the love with the stars. We're all stars. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everybody. Be sure to connect with Dr. Michaela Haas, HAAS. Go there, and all our social media as well. And be sure to get to my website, debscott.com, so you can sign up to get a listing of all of our great guests. Thank you. Go out and have a beautiful, blessed weekend, everybody. And when you're a blessing, you will be blessed. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Best People We Know radio show with your host, Deb Scott. For more on Deb and her guests, plus her award-winning guidebook to transformation, The Sky is Green and the Grass is Blue, Turning Your Upside-Down World Right Side Up, go to Deb's website, greenskyandbluegrass.com. You can also connect with Deb for coaching or speaking, and sign up for Deb's free Mind Vitamin newsletter while you're there. So now, you're one step closer today to your greatness. We look forward to being with you next time on the Best People We Know radio show.